I'll be speaking of ID theft on the following items. First of all, we have already had a number of presentations on ID theft and a number of different figures from different countries as well. But what we found in this project was that actually this earlier data that is available is actually rather scattered, and it's difficult to compare and get a comprehensive view of how many people there are actually falling victim of ID theft in different European countries and in the US as well. So this is something we have worked on to collect data on that. Also, we are interested in knowing if and in what ways people change their behavior if they have fallen victim of ID theft. And on top of that, if knowing how or what for people use their identity documents, such as ID card, if knowing that helps actually to tackle ID theft, if there is some sort of a relationship between what people use their documents for and if they fall victim of ID theft. So that's what we've been working on, and this is the result. We have a data set on 6 European countries plus the US, a bit more than 400 respondents from each of those countries, and this is basically what the results look like. Over the last 3 years, 36 months, roughly 25–30% of the population in Austria, Germany, Spain, France, Italy, UK and the US has fallen victim of ID theft. Roughly half of them, something like 12–14%, have actually fallen victim of theft, ID theft within the last 1 year. So one could say that it's a recurring sort of phenomena, and many people actually fall victim of ID theft. Well, or at least they fall a victim of attempted ID theft, someone trying to trick out their personal details rather often. What is more, there is also a quite large share of respondents who say that they have experienced multiple types of identity theft within this 1 year period. This is the red part of the bars on the chart over here. What is more, clearly internet, the black part of the bars on the chart, is a major concern, and what's happening in internet is just is a misuse of personal email accounts and different social media accounts such as Facebook or Twitter or so on. Also, credit cards continue to be a major issue, especially in the US, but also in Europe. Happily enough, majority of those cases are sort of disclosed fairly rapidly. People discover the misuse or attempted misuse. 70% of the people discover it within 1 week, so that's quite fast. Half of them discover it actually within 1 day. Where the data leaks out is typically, this is what people themselves think, how their personal data got out of control, so to say. Personally, it's mostly about someone hacking into computer or something strange happening in their computer. It's about responding to fraudulent emails or phone calls, but then also credit card payments, either offline or online, are a major issue. Now, how big is the issue then? The estimate we have based on our data is that in this year, 2015, it's going to be roughly 12–16 billion euros in Europe that criminals will be obtaining by the means of ID theft. Well, some of that would be probably be recovered, but still, I mean, it's a major market, so to say. if you compare it with the market capitalization of Lufthansa, which is around 5 billion euros, it's basically 3 times Lufthansa. That's just for comparison. And the estimate we have for the US is something like 7 to 9 billion euros this year will be the market size, so to say, for ID theft. So it actually is quite a big issue. Also, the value obtained by the thieves varies very significantly across different cases. We have lots of cases where it's about very small amounts, less than 10 euros, but we have also cases that are up to tens of thousands of euros. So that's what the figures say, that the average is something like 1,000 euros, while the median is something like 500 euros. So it varies really a lot between different cases. How long it takes to actually resolve the issue, also happily enough, for the majority of cases it's resolvable fairly quickly. For 70% of cases across different countries, we see that it got resolved within 1 week. But we also see that there is a small share of cases where actually fully resolving it takes a long period of time, half a year, 1 year, something like that, even more. And those tend to be also the cases that are the most stressful for the victims, but also often the financially most costly to actually resolve it and sort of recover their own reputation and the financial losses. Now, do the victims actually report to the police on identity theft? What we see here is actually that the most frequent cases, those that are happening on internet or those involving banks and credit card companies, actually seem to be the less likely to be reported to the police. Banks and credit card companies, well, some of those cases are just reported by the banks themselves, not by the victims, or the victims just get repaid by the bank, and that's more or less where the case stops. But the situation in the internet is clearly especially worrisome because there seems to be a vast majority of cases that are actually never reported to the police, and obviously those people don't get any help from the authorities either. While if we looked at satisfaction with activities of police on those cases where the case has been actually reported to police, something like 70% of those cases ended up with a sort of positive result, in a sense that actually police and so authorities could actually help the victims. So, what have the victims done to change their behavior to be more secure? First of all, they say that they change their PIN codes and passwords more often and use better passwords. Also, they say that they are more careful about sharing personal information. They think more about with whom and where they share their personal information. Mobiles continue to be a major area of problem because all sort of mobile devices continue to be are increasingly used for accessing all sort of secure services, including banks and everything else. But as to public perception, people seem to think that those mobile devices are not really that much of risk items, and they don't use any specific security software for protecting themselves, their mobile telephones. So that's clearly one of the problem areas. Now, we looked at also at public perception on government-issued identity documents, and what we found is that generally across all countries that we cover, there is a very strong confidence in security of government-issued identity documents. This is a share of respondents that say that they are confident that government-issued identity documents are actually secure, from birth certificates or passports to driver licenses. Something like 70 to 80%, 90% say that those documents are secure, they don't have a top on that. And it doesn't really change, it doesn't really matter if a person responding to this question has fallen a victim of identity theft or not. They are still fairly confident about government-issued identity documents. It's about, but it's completely different when it comes to different private services, be it banks, emails, or even worse, Facebooks, that are generally considered highly risky and insecure. Especially Austrian and German respondents seem to be very skeptical about security of those private services, and we also find a very clear linkage here. If a person falls a victim of identity theft on internet or has a case with a credit card, clearly he is less confident that this is a secure means of identification or this is a secure service. So we clearly need a strong ID, especially on internet, which is a major area where a lot of identity theft happens, but the take-up of electronic ID is still well, very uneven and slow in many European countries. Raul had a lengthy presentation on that. I won't give you too much details anymore on it. Just a few figures. We have something like 65% of the population in Spain that have electronic ID cards, more than 90% in Estonia, while Germany and Italy are, for example, are considerably lagging behind, and we have even some more countries that do not issue any electronic ID card, be it France or UK, for example. In Spain, just as an example, something like half of the owners of the electronic ID cards actually use it on monthly basis or multiple times in a year for online banking or different other services. Banking still being one of the main areas which is interesting for using electronic IDs. Access to corporate networks of the companies where people work is not really something electronic ID cards are used that often. This is sort of splashy, not easy to comprehend figure, but what it says that it's a very unclear situation as to preferences to use electronic signatures as compared to paper signatures. What we have is that it's basically inconclusive. There is no strong support for electronic signature so far. We have something like 20–30% of the population in different countries that are strongly against electronic ID card. We have, well, electronic signature. We have about the same proportion that are for electronic ID card, and we have also another share that are simply undecided if they would like to use electronic signature or not. So this is conclusions. The ID theft clearly is a major issue in Europe. 3 times the market capitalization of Lufthansa. This is what the market size is, and it needs to be tackled properly, especially when it comes to ID theft on internet, but also in financial sector, credit cards and so on, online offline payments. What we see also is that identity theft involving government-issued identity documents is actually fairly rare. It's just something like 2–3% of all cases that we have identified in different countries, but it might, those cases involving government-issued documents might be actually very costly at the level of individuals involved, meaning that both sort of socially and financially and in terms of stress levels, it might be a harsh case to tackle with. Well, and finally, clearly, ease of use and trust in government in general is something that is very much needed when we think of electronic ID cards or electronic authentication on internet that could be widespread and easily taken up. When it comes to different card readers, different software drivers and software packages that do not mix and mingle very easily and do not work together, then of course this is a clear and strong stopping factor. Thank you.